a wild July 4th weekend. We'll start with offensive tackle Felix Ojo to Texas Tech.
Well, Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders are absolutely flexing on the recruiting trail right now with their powerhouse program in the new NIL era, and it allows them to be a contender for recruits like Felix Ojo. Certainly they're a program on the rise. Their Texas connections in state, the trust that high school coaches and prospects alike have with Coach McGuire and the staff that's homegrown in state makes these prospects comfortable with Texas Tech. They see a program on the rise with so much support around Lubbock in a place that has the resources to allow them to maximize their value off the field. I've heard different numbers for Felix Ojo. Obviously, we heard the $5 million plus number that his agent put out there through Hayes Fawcett. Then you have Pete Nakos's report on 3 that says that the number is lower. That's a best case scenario. No proof of contract in Pete Nakos' story. But what we do know is that Felix Ojo is going to Texas Tech, that they were by far the most lucrative opportunity of the programs in the mix. And it's a place where he also sees himself being the best version he can be as a football player, or it can get the best, or it's a place that can get the best out of him as a football player as well. And Texas Tech, if you've been following Sam Spiegelman, they're trending for some of the best players in the country in 2027. We'll see who they can close and get in the fold there. But Texas Tech is a program to follow on the trail in the new era of college football because of the support that they're getting from alum and former players that are investing back into the program that want to see this team win on the biggest stage.
Yeah, just crazy to me, though, that they could beat out Texas in an NIL battle because, as we know, I mean, Texas is no slouch. They've beaten some huge programs for some huge names that maybe they weren't supposed to get either. So I think it's even more impressive that they took one from Texas at a position of need.
Well, the beauty of the NIL era, as you know, Josh, is your value is a number that the school deems to put on you. Yeah. And depending on the program, your value may be more based on a number of things. And
we all cut our own deals.
Some schools are more aggressive in their approach of recruiting unproven high school players, and other programs, like say in Ohio State, they are investing in some players on the trail, like take a Devin Sanchez out of the Lone Star State last year. I think that they, in addition to all the resources and stuff that Ohio State has from a football standpoint on the field, Devin Sanchez is someone that they pour into and they win that recruitment. But it's about holding over their roster that won a national championship so guys like Carnell Tate don't go in the transfer portal.
Sure.
For a program like Texas Tech, Felix Ojo is someone that, you know, if the number that the agent put out there is correct, is someone that they deem a special player that's going to be ready, in my opinion, to make an instant impact and be one of the highest paid players in college football right from the jump at a position where it's very hard to be an instant impact player as a true freshman. And I've also heard college programs and front offices say, hey, look, sometimes you got to invest in someone like they're a first-round pick, and maybe they're not a first-round pick at 18 years old, but by the time they're 21, 22, they are. And to win that recruiting battle, to get them to come here, we need to invest and put a high number out there. And then you got the locker room deal where other players are counting other players' money. Agents of these players are looking to renegotiate their players' contracts, sometimes from spring ball to the fall. So there's all kinds of wildness going on out there. But for Felix Ojo, to take Darren Heitner's words when Jackson Cantwell committed to Miami, life-changing money for Felix Ojo, and college football recruiting is certainly in a brand new era.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it with this next July 4th commitment. Well, July 5th was Calvin Russell to Syracuse. And again, I think this is another representation of something that could only happen in this NIL era, that where the playing field is kind of leveled when it comes to recruiting. You got Syracuse going into Miami Northwestern and pulling wide receiver Calvin Russell. And this was really a battle against Michigan.
Yeah, and if you're watching the Wilt Fong Whip Around every week like you should be on the Rivals Network, hit like and subscribe. Calvin Russell picking Syracuse is no surprise. We talked on the show last Thursday. We had Syracuse in pole position. Now, we went back and forth on that, as recruitments often do, sometimes even at the end. And there were times where I thought Michigan had the edge going into the decision. And look, I even read a statement from his agency where he was going to Michigan. They had a press release embargoed. This young man was going to Michigan. But when he made his final decision, he went with Syracuse. Now, this was not the same as Felix Ojo in Texas Tech and the biggest offer on the table. Mm-hmm. I think that these were comparable offers that Michigan and Syracuse had. And Michigan, they are tough to beat for a program from an NIL standpoint when you are amongst their top players on the board like Calvin Russell was. I think Michigan gave him a great opportunity off the field. This was an old school recruiting win for Syracuse in the sense that nobody recruited him harder and connected with him and his family more than Fran Brown and company, while also showing a program on the rise with an exciting offense that lit it up last year, a program that won 10 games. And Fran Brown wasn't happy with just 10 games. He wanted to make the college football playoff. And that game against Pittsburgh where Kyle McCord got off to a rough start with the interceptions, there were moments in the season where if they win that other game, they're in the college football playoff or knocking on the door. They're in the ACC title game, I should say, with an opportunity to go to the college football playoff. So Coach Brown, that's where he wants to go. Calvin Russell, their top target on the board, maybe regardless of position, they feel helps get them there. And they recruited him, sent almost every coach on staff down there in the spring. Basketball staff invested. They poured into the personal side of that recruitment. And I think that's what won out for Calvin Russell as much as anything. Now, they had to be competitive on NIL. It's a new era. So if you aren't in the game there, then you still don't have a chance. It doesn't matter how much they like you as a human. But the human approach in that recruitment, I think, was the difference because I think Michigan was very competitive. And look, Michigan was very exciting too, what they offer off the field academically, the support they give their student athletes, the stage they play on. He would have been very happy at Michigan and probably has nothing but great things to say about the Wolverines. But when it was time to actually announce a commitment, where I do think at times he was leaning Michigan, when it was time to actually say where I'm going, where I'm putting it out there, where I'm making it official, this young man went with Syracuse, and it starts with Coach Brown, Fran Brown.
But the question is, Steve, because it's cute, you get these commitments in July, but do they stick? Do they sign? We're talking Felix Ojo, Calvin Russell. Do you think they will end up signing with the programs they committed to this month?
Well, I think Felix Ojo will, based on just the package and the way he made his college decision. I think Texas Tech has done a great job of separating from the pack. With Calvin Russell, I just think Miami will come back around. Now, that doesn't mean they'll win out. We knew Miami came back around on DJ Pickett. DJ Pickett still signed with LSU. Yeah. So, and he was a legacy recruit, just like Calvin Russell is with Miami. Do I think he'll stick with Syracuse? And this commitment happened 2 days ago. So the answer is yes. But if you're asking me to rank who has a bigger chance of flipping, I mean, I just think Miami, they're going to, the expectations are high to have a great season. You bring in Carson Beck out of the portal. You make another run at this young man. But they're 0-1 on the trail trying to get Calvin Russell. They tried to make a late push here for him at the end, right before he picked Syracuse over Michigan. They'll do it again in the fall, and we'll see what happens. But that was an old school recruiting win for Syracuse in a modern era where they still had to come correct with an exciting financial package. But so did Michigan. So I think all things were pretty even on that front. I don't think Syracuse blew every other school away with a chunk of their salary cap.
Got it. All right. So Calvin Russell was on the 5th. Ojo was on the 4th. And there was one that happened before. Somebody jumped the line. And it was Emani Ehano to Oregon. So the number 2 ranked offensive tackle in America surprised everybody. You would think with these 5 stars, we know when they're committing, but he really wanted to get it over with, I guess. And July 3rd was his date. This was a huge pickup for Oregon right before July 4th.
Well, when we were recording last Thursday's Whip Around, we obviously recorded an Iheanacho part about him potentially committing on July 4th, but then we took it out because the date wasn't public. We had an idea that it was coming down the pipe in the near future. I thought it was going to be a July 4th pop-up. Right. It was a July 3rd announce on Pat McAfee's show. and in front of some mainstream sports fans. And he went with Oregon, which was not a surprise. In Oregon, this was a prospect that they did a great job recruiting from a relationship standpoint, from an NIL standpoint, the resources that the Ducks have, the way that they are developing offensive linemen is exciting, the pace that the program's playing at, the defending Big Ten champs, competing for national championships, checked all the boxes for Emani Ehano. Oregon led back in January. There's been there was some change at the top of his list from Georgia to Maryland, but Oregon probably led the most, and now they got him in the fold.
Right. Do you think Maryland is still a threat here?
I don't. I think he's locked in.
Okay. So they got Zion Ely, but they're not going to get Manny. All right. So that was the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. Now let's turn the page. Let's preview a couple more big commitments. The fireworks are not over yet. We got a big one tomorrow. One of the top athletes in America out of the state of Texas, athlete Jaylen Lot. Can the Longhorns keep this one home?
Well, I think that Oregon is the program to beat for Jaylen Lot. I logged the Rivals prediction in favor of the Ducks for Jaylen Lot back in March. That doesn't mean I always felt great about that pick since. I mean, recruiting's fluid. And so there was a time where USC was going to make a big run at him, and no program is flexing more on the trail, although Texas Tech is trying to catch up rapidly, than USC. And I think that they made some very advantageous opportunities to Jaylen Lot and his family on his official visit that made me think this young man could be a Trojan. And then certainly LSU has pushed hard, Texas, some other programs. He even went up to Ohio State. But the visit to Oregon in March, the return visit for his official visit June 20th, the offense, the way they get that ball out to the wide receivers, and the way that they've developed in that program, in that offense. Again, resources, NIL. This is one of the top track and field athletes in the country. Obviously, Oregon's track program is second to none. I like where the Ducks stand going into his announcement. I think that Dan Lanning and company get more good news on the heels of landing Emani Ehano. He's a top 5 player. Jaylen Lott's a top 50 recruit with special defensive back traits as well. I would try and play him a little bit both ways on the next level with his skill set, but certainly start at wide receiver where I think he can be instant impact as an explosive guy.
Yeah. Could the wild factor in this whole thing be the team that offers Jaylen Lot the ability to play on both sides of the football? I mean, it sounds like that is kind of where we're getting at with Lot.
Well, I think he's already through his process and ready to announce. So I don't know. I think it was more about program fit, program development, opportunities off the field from a resource standpoint and track and field standpoint, comfortability with the coaching staff. New receivers coach Ross Douglas and him hit it off. Dan Lanning, head coach, as personable as it gets with top recruiting targets. Again, the success of winning the Big Ten championship, the most rugged league in college football this past year. I think Oregon's put themselves in great position. He's got a lot of good opportunities. We'll see what he announces, but I really like the Ducks right now.
All right. Jaylen Lot, athlete Jaylen Lot announces on Tuesday. Then we got another athlete, the #1 athlete in America. He goes 6'4", 285. His name's Lamar Brown. He plays offensive line and defensive line. He's going to commit Thursday, July 10th, LSU, Miami, Texas, Texas A&M. Steve, this has been a fluid recruitment as well.
Absolutely. And in the right situations, this young man could play tight end, fullback, hand him the ball in goal line situations, right? #1 athlete at 285 pounds, jumbo athlete. And certainly a ferocious defensive lineman that programs see as a guy that can play inside out, multiple techniques across the line of scrimmage. My Rivals predictions on LSU, it's been there for a while, but certainly Texas A&M has been up front, out in front in this recruitment. He's visited there several times. That's the coaching staff he says has recruited him the hardest, that he knows the best. Coach Sean Spencer, Coach Gerard Edey. Look, the Aggies have the #3 class in the country. They have a chance to finish #1 this cycle. They need Lamar Brown to get there. You're not recruiting the #1 class in the country without the resources off the field. We know Texas A&M is a program that has a lot of support and financial backing to allow them to win so many blue chip battles. They're in it for Lamar Brown. They have the resources to win on that front, but they also do a great job like Oregon, connecting with their top targets. Mike Elko is a good head coach recruiter. Tony Gerard, Edie, and Sean Spencer recruiting together on the trail. Did you see the Bad Boys tweet that they put out after they won out over the weekend for Bryce Perry Wright? Those guys have good chemistry. Recruits feel that when they come to College Station. Lamar Brown knows how loved he is at Texas A&M. So they're very much in it. But LSU, their scheme he likes, called Coach Kelly a great coach. It's close to home, playing for State U. My intel still favors LSU, but there are some people out there that I talked to that think he ultimately still ends up at Texas A&M. So that'll be a fun one to follow. He told me last night he'll have his mind made up today. Told Sam Spiegelman he'll have his mind made up by Tuesday. I think we've been around recruiting so long, Josh, that I doubt we have clarity till decision day.
Yeah, it seems that way with Lamar Brown. All right, we'll go to another number one. There's still a couple number one players at their position that haven't made decisions yet. We'll go with 5-star tight end Kaden Prothrow. He's set to come off the board this week as well. It's been leaning George. Is anybody going to ruin Georgia's day when Kaden Prothrow announces?
Georgia right on USC's heels for the number one ranked class for rivals in the country right now. Kaden Prothrow would be a big addition for Georgia. Chad Simmons and I have the Bulldogs predicted after spending time with him at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge 2 weeks ago in the great city of Indianapolis. Georgia's got 2 tight ends committed now in Keys and Fogel. Fogel committed on July 4th. Braden Fogel from Ohio. Lincoln Keys from Michigan. They've come to the Midwest and landed 2 of the nation's best at the position. Prothrow's in state. He's been to Georgia numerous times. One of their top targets at the position alongside Mark Bowman. If you're Kaden Prothrow, you're not worried about anybody. You're betting on yourself at whatever school you pick. So if it's Georgia and their track record of first rounders, you're like, look, I'm talented. I'm going to get on the field. They're going to get the most out of me. Texas, Florida, Auburn, some of the other schools that he went to on official visits that he is strongly considering throughout his process. So we'll see what happens Saturday now that Georgia has 2 tight ends committed instead of 1 when we made that prediction at the Rivals Challenge.
Yeah, that does make things a little bit more interesting. All right, another number one player at his position hasn't committed yet. That's safety Brilen Wack. And he's not set to decide until August 22nd. But, Steve, is there a team to beat in this recruitment?
I think that he loves all 4 schools that he took an official visit to. If you're asking me who has the inch, I'd still point towards Ohio State. The relationship with the staff, the way he fits in with the players on the team, schematically, getting around those coaches and seeing how they get the best out of their players, the way they use their safeties. The city of Columbus was exciting. They check a lot of boxes for him. I think he's in the negotiation phase of his recruitment, and he's got a lot of time to negotiate the best deal possible. I think he sees at Auburn a program that's on the rise, an official visit that blew him away. Florida, Coach Sinceri getting hired there. I think that they've made some exciting. They've made an exciting push from an NIL front in Gainesville. And then Texas A&M, they've maybe been the program of the finalists that have been on in the longest, done the best job from start to finish. And he said it's a place that resets the bar every time he visits. And again, Mike Elko is a safety guy, Coach Ish. There's a lot of things he likes about Texas A&M. Now it's about putting together the best opportunities away from the field, continuing to have that dialogue, and then for him and his family to weigh it all in. I'm not saying this is a young man that's going to just take the best offer, but I think in the new age of modern football recruiting, it's processing that along with the football opportunity. I mean, his sister plays softball at Auburn. They're no strangers to the Division I process and the college experience and how it should go down. And I think it's important to Brilen Wack and his family that he has a great experience in college, playing with teammates that he likes, a coaching staff that can get the best out of him. But we're also got the business side going on here. And there's about 5 to 6 weeks now where these programs can put together a package that he can also include in his final decision-making process. And so we'll see what kind of impact that has down the stretch. But I think if Ohio State is close on the business side, I think they'll land them.
All right. One more number one I want to ask you about. That's running back Savian Haidider. He's hinting at a decision date. Steve, when do you think Savian Haidider is going to let us all know where he's going?
Well, I think he'll decide some point before his senior year. Obviously, he said that he's got a decision date coming soon on his social media page. I think it's still coming down to Michigan and Tennessee. I think that Michigan's been one of the longstanding front runners that has led at times in this recruitment. Tennessee has come on strong with multiple visits this calendar year, including 865 Live, and then they got the last official visit. I think we've seen the Vols be real aggressive financially for guys that they covet. Savian Haidider certainly fits that. Same with Michigan. So I think it's a heavyweight battle on that front. Again, I don't think he's necessarily going to go to the highest number, but certainly adds excitement to the process here at the end, and why those two programs are in the mix, in addition to what they bring on the field and with their offensive style of play, relationships with the coaching staff. I'd maybe still give the edge to Michigan, but Tennessee has been trending up for months now, and they can't be taken lightly down the stretch. No program, these programs don't know. They're still waiting to hear. They're still recruiting him hard. But Michigan or Tennessee for Savian Haidider, I think we're all going to know soon. He's taken multiple visits to those programs, including his officials. He's in decision-making mode with his family and representation, and it'll be exciting to see where he goes. Michigan's had him as the number one overall player on their board, regardless of position. Tennessee had the SEC Player of the Year at running back last year, and so they have some things to sell as well. So we'll see what happens.